Help for Attorneys, Yes. May 3, 2020 by Anna von Reitz. As more and more attorneys wake up with a shudder, just like the rest of us, more and more of them are coming to us wondering what they can do and how they can live without betraying their country and their countrymen. Understanding the options and the different court systems is crucial, and so is your own situation. Many of the members of the early living law firm team were retired judges and bar attorneys who, at a certain point, retired and came home to the land and soil. They gave up their bar memberships and turned their skills toward research and restoration. That is still certainly an option, if you are ready to retire. We can use all the help we can get. That said, there are plenty of loyal Americans who are bar attorneys who aren't ready to retire and can't afford to quit their profession. They have families to support like everyone else. Because millions upon millions of Americans have been subjected to false registration and impersonation, those same Americans have been subjected to the foreign Maritime, Admiralty and Commercial Courts. As a result, that's where the bulk of the work is. As our American common law courts reopen, this will change as more and more people come under our public law. However, for right now, many attorneys who want to do the right thing feel that they are between a rock and a hard place. There aren't enough American common law courts set up locally to provide them with a living, yet they don't want to participate in a crooked court system once they know what's going on. It doesn't have to be that way. If you are a bar attorney and you were born in one of the states of the Union, you still qualify to claim your state national status. Doing so is a benefit to you, as it brings you back under the protections and guarantees of the constitutions. It also makes it possible to work in multiple court systems. You can work as a counselor of law in the American common law courts, where your job is to stand at the elbow of either plaintiff or defendant and give good advice. You can also work in the Foreign Bar Association courts and help Americans rebut the false legal presumptions being held against them as a counselor at law. And, finally, when you represent clients that actually are federal citizens or corporations, you continue to act as an attorney at law in those cases. So, counselor of law, working for Americans in American common law courts, counselor at law working for Americans being improperly addressed by foreign maritime, admiralty or commercial courts, or attorney at law working for corporations and/or federal citizens who really are federal citizens. All these are options you can exercise without ripping up your bar membership and without dishonor. That's all good news, protection of the constitutions and plenty of work and lots of options, simply by filling out the 1779 Declaration for Federal Employees and checking the State National box. But someone will say, I am not a federal employee. All bar attorneys are federal franchises by definition and technically fall under the Foreign Agents Registration Act (FARA) either directly or indirectly. As long as you keep your bar membership, you are under obligations of federal citizenship, and therein lies the rub. Bar attorneys are prohibited from holding public offices in our government, because they are already part of a different government in their capacity as dual federal citizens. If you don't want to hold a public office, that's neither here nor there. It's just something to be aware of. Of course, this is only talking about the actual American government, not the U.S. government or the government of the federally incorporated state franchises. Those are all private offices and you are free to occupy them. Here's something else to be aware of. When you work in federal or incorporated state courts, the money you make is federally connected income and every penny is taxable. When you work for the American common law courts, every penny is yours to keep. That, and preserving the cause of freedom, is a mighty incentive to get involved and stay involved in the restoration of the American common law courts. Our courts are much simpler and less hidebound than the European-style international courts that have become more and more prevalent as more and more Americans have been mischaracterized as U.S. citizens. For starters, all decisions in our courts, other than decisions about court rules and that kind of thing, are rendered by juries. All cases other than probate involve actual injuries to living people or their property, and the injured parties all speak for themselves and produce their own evidence. Lawyers only advise. The sole exception where we employ public prosecutors is when the injured party is dead or physically or mentally incapacitated to the point that they can't represent themselves. Most bar attorneys find our way of doing things disconcerting after spending decades in the foreign courts. It takes a while to get used to the American way, which is simpler, more direct, and far more interested in justice for living people. For example, our courts have the power of jury nullification. If a jury finds a law repugnant, vague, or otherwise flawed or unfair, our juries can judge both the law and the facts and toss bad laws out on their noses. I have now known many bar attorneys who turned the corner and saw the light, and I have witnessed their struggles coming to terms with American justice, real American justice. It isn't always easy, but it is always enlightening and inspiring. If you cherish the purposes of justice, if you care about your country, we are in the process of resurrecting the American court system from its faint embers, and need your help to serve the millions of Americans who need to come home to America and stand on the land and soil again. Help restore the courts we all are heir to.